In this module, we will learn about how to build evals for AI applications. A lot of people are trying to use GenAI to create softwares. The speed of churning out softwares as well as the capability to solve complex use cases such as chatbot is now available, but these very applications are not 100% reliable all of the times. Let's understand with the help of this example. We all know that LLMs have a knowledge cutoff date, but even if they know the answer and are asked the same question again and again, they tend to provide different answers. For example, if you ask the question, how many A's are there in the word banana? For the first 99 times, you might get the right answer, that is 3 times, but the 100th time, when you ask the same question, there is a possibility that the LLM fetches you a wrong answer. Hence, just creating a GenAI application or an LLM-based application is not the end. We need to have a robust mechanism to check the veracity of such applications. The question you may ask now, okay, I have understood the limitation of LLM applications and even I have observed the same in the past, but how do I go and fix it? One may argue that, hey, I know a way. I will first create an AI application and test it around a few use cases and observe the output. In case I'm not happy with the output, I'll fix the prompt and check the entire system again. This approach, where you are using vibe checks to judge the efficacy of the system, is good for building an MVP, but these approaches in general are not scalable. And hence, if you need to make your LLM application robust, evals are the answer to the above problem. But first, let us understand what does an eval actually stand for. An eval, which is nothing but a short form for evaluation, is a structured test to check the performance of an AI system. It helps the system owner measure quality, reliability, and correctness across different scenarios. But as soon as you hear the word eval, and when you go through the description of it, there could be another question which might pop up in your mind. The world has been writing software for decades now, and for every software written, we were writing unit test cases to check the efficacy of these softwares. So why exactly we are not writing the unit test cases to check the efficacy of our AI systems? A great question. Let's understand why unit cases won't work here. Unit test cases work very well in case of deterministic systems. That is, systems where for every input, an output can be very well defined. A simple example could be when a user enters a wrong password 3 times in a day, we need to log the access to his account, let's say for a day. Versus, on the other hand, evals are applicable in the non-deterministic systems, such as your AI systems. These are systems where even for a single input, there could be multiple valid outputs. For example, if you ended up creating a system which can summarize any news article provided to it, there could be different right outputs for a single input. For example, these are the two valid summary for a news article. A, the Guwahati test will have tea before lunch due to early sunset. And the second right summary could be early sunsets prompted tea before lunch schedule for the Guwahati test. Now, we have understood why evals are necessary to evaluate the AI systems and why they are different from unit test cases. So let's move on to understand evals in much more detail. In this section, we will discuss about a step-by-step flow to create evals. So the first step is error analysis. In this step, we go through real interactions between the user and the AI system. These steps help us understand the possible failure points of the AI system. According to the identified failure points, we can later decide to build a suite of evals. The second step from here will be to create a set of evals. The solution might contain more than one eval. These different evals are suited to handle the different set of issues identified in the previous step. And the third and the final step is to use these evals for enabling the continuous improvements within your AI systems. To understand further, let's deep dive into step number 1, which is the error analysis. The most important step as part of the error analysis is to let a SME go through some of the real-life interactions between the users and our AI system. In this step, after studying the real interactions, the SME shares their point of view, which is if AI system has passed or failed in handling the described scenario, and a detailed commentary on how good or bad was the AI judgment. To explain this concept better, we will go through an example of a user interaction with an AI-powered chatbot for an investment platform. This platform that we are talking about allows users to invest in multiple instruments such as mutual funds, stocks, etc. Now, in the very first scenario, when the user is inquiring for the failed transaction, the AI system is able to pinpoint on the exact transaction ID and provide an ETA for the resolution, which is a good handling of the scenario by the AI systems. In the next scenario, the user asks a tricky question. regarding the recommendation for stocks. In this case, the AI system goes beyond what regulatory guidelines allow them to do and recommends 3 stocks. This is one of the use cases which could have slipped one's attention if somebody had decided to say, okay, to evaluate the performance of my AI system, I'll just ask another LLM to judge the results. It doesn't matter if your AI system has provided 3 good or bad recommendations in this case. The error here is that it shouldn't have provided these recommendations in the first place because the regulator system doesn't allow any investment platform to promote or recommend stocks. The next scenario that we are going to talk about is a classical human handoff issue, where the user is requesting for an interaction with a human, but AI kept on offering his help and frustrating the user. Now, continuing further, the next question you might ask is that how long do I keep on doing this error analysis? So the right answer is there is no right answer. There is no scientifically right answer to this question, but you should continue with your human evaluation until you start finding a repeating pattern and stop making any new discoveries or any new observations. Once you have gone through enough samples, let's say 100 of them, we also need to identify the underlying themes of those observations. The process of bucketing human observations is often called as axial coding. Axial coding is a qualitative data analysis method where researchers connect the initial open codes from raw data into broader categories to form a theoretical framework. We will understand that how do we do the axial coding for a real world problem. To demonstrate this, I have taken a dump of all of my SME comments for the scenario where our AI system has failed. Now, in order to do this axial coding effectively, you can take all of your commentary and pass it to an LLM. You can mention in your prompt that these responses are human evaluation of AI logs, and you want the LLM to convert them to axial codes. In order to restrict the analysis, you can even keep a cap for the number of categories of axial codes needed by you. For example, in this case, I have restricted it to up to 5 or 6 categories. Now, as an output of this prompt, LLM will go through all of your SME commentary and start providing you certain axial codes. In this case, I'm just putting the response of my LLM here in this sheet. It has helped me provide 6 different categories of axial codes. Further, I will ask the LLM to classify the different commentaries that I have into different axial codes to understand that which issue is more prominent. After doing the same, the response will look something like this, where for every SME commentary, I'll actually have a failure category, which is something that I've identified in the previous step. Now, in order to get a broader sense of the failure points, we should also create a pivot table around the actual codes and understanding which category is leading to the maximum amount of failures. And if we were to prioritize LLM as a judge, which category shall we attack first? So if I look at our example, after creating a pivot table, what we basically get to understand is that most of the times our AI system is failing in handling the regulatory and legal non-compliance issues, followed by, let's say, operational and transaction execution errors. So if you have to focus on building an LLM as judge or an eval, you need to focus upon this category first. And if you have to deprioritize certain category, that will be tax and reporting misinformation, because the instances of these incidences happening is something which is very, very less. Now, in the next step, it is advised to create a custom eval for every category of actual code. We can write an elaborative prompt determining the role of the judge along the lines of action and the action judge is supposed to take. Now further, it is advised to create a custom eval for every actual coding related issue. We can write an elaborative prompt determining the role of the judge along with the action the judge is supposed to take. For example, this is a sample prompt for flagging the customer experience of handoff deficiency related issues. You can see that within the prompt, I have highlighted the following sections. First, the persona of LLM as a judge, that what role this judge is taking. Now, in the next step, I've also identified a broader framework of the issues or scenarios that can fall in the chosen categories. Now, in the next step, I've also provided some guidance regarding the response that we're expecting from the LLMs, followed by some real scenarios that I have manually picked from our SME commentary and fed it to the LLM. In the next step, we'll focus on how to interpret the quality of the output provided by LLM judge. In order to understand the efficacy, we need to follow an iterative process. What it means is that we need to run our judge on a fraction of LLM logs and compare its output against the human evaluation. Once we have done this, we have to plot a 2x2 matrix of this sort. This is a metric where we are trying to gauge the performance of LLM as a judge against a human. As you can see, the matrix has 4 sections. In case most of your entries lie in the top left bucket, you have done a great job. Your eval is doing as fine a job as a human could have done. Additionally, the SME as well as the evals are aligning on the fact that your AI system is doing a great job of providing good responses. The entries which are coming in the top right indicates that LLM's judge is acting very harshly and flagging even good responses as bad. Hence, the eval should be fixed. The scenarios represented in the bottom left section indicates that LLM judge is very lenient and letting the poor responses also pass through and hence needs an immediate fix because you do not want your customers to see bad kind of responses. The bottom right corner is also a place where a human judgment and the AI judgment are having consensus, but they are also consenting on the fact that most of the responses provided by your AI system is bad and hence the AI system needs an improvement. We have looked at a detailed framework of handling the evaluation systems for one type of use case. The way we need to apply this will vary across different kind of AI architectures. Let's look at few other cases one by one. First, let's look at the example of a rack system. Now in a rack system, there are 3 important parts. First, the retriever, where the owner likes to bring in the right set of information. This is followed by a generator who takes the input provided by the retriever and gives the final response to the user. Hence, just a pass or fail judgment of the system is not sufficient and doesn't help one in pinpointing the exact issue. One needs to clearly understand if the failure is happening in the retrieval or the generation, because a wrong retrieval will always lead to a wrong generation. To understand this further, let's say there's a customer who wants to have a penne pasta. In order to serve the objective, the onus lies on 2 parties. A shopper, whose job is to shop for the ingredients, and the chef, whose job is to use these ingredients to cook the pasta. But if the shopper or your retriever didn't even bring the right ingredients, can the chef even make the right pasta? No. Hence, for a rack system, we also need to break our evals into 2 steps. First, evaluate if the retriever is doing its job properly, and then evaluate if the generator is also working fine. Now let's understand this further with the help of a real example. Imagine that someone is willing to generate a company policy bot. Wherever user asks a question, the bot scraps through the relevant document and generates the answer to satisfy the user query. The question user asks is, does the company offer paternity leave and how many weeks is it? Now, you may have a multiple list of documents which are available to your bot. Let's say out of these documents, document B and document D are the relevant ones. The job of finding the relevant documents has to be done manually by somebody in the very first place. To evaluate the performance of retrievers, we measure something called as recall at K. Recall metric at K can be understood as the ratio of relevant documents retrieved in the top K results and the total number of relevant documents available. Let's say, in this example, you set a value of K is equal to 3. One of the bad retrieval situations is where you were able to find 0 relevant documents, as the first example highlights. And since our retrieval was poor, our final response will be poor as well. While in the case of a good retrieval solution, we were able to retrieve all of the relevant documents and hence our final response to the user question will also be of good quality. Now, you might be thinking that if I keep a really high value of K, my recall metric will always look perfect. Is it even the right thing to do? Maybe a very high K is going to make your recall scores perfect, but it is not always the right thing to do. If your recall at a lower value of K is low, but tends to increase only if the value of K increases, it is not a good sign. This indicates that you are bombarding your AI system with too many documents in the hope of finding the right answer. And we all know that if LLM is fed with too much of information, it will start hallucinating and the accuracy of its responses will start coming down. So, as a general rule of thumb, normally people take a good value of recall at K is equal to 5 as 0.8 or 80%. Now, let's also talk about another very popular workflow, which is agentic workflow. Now, why are the evals for agentic workflows very different? The reasons are as following. Agents execute a sequence of actions to achieve an end objective. Let's say booking a flight ticket. The final outcome, that is, did the agent book a flight or ticket or not, is a good start, but it doesn't allow us to pinpoint the problem in the agentic workflow. If we are able to pinpoint the exact problem in the workflow, we can improvise the agentic workflow and seek better outcomes. To understand this further, let's look at the example where an agent is responsible for doing the flight bookings. In this case, the agent has to execute multiple steps, such as first understand the user request, then identify if the user is looking for flights or hotels or anything else, further decode the information required to book a flight, and call the flight booking API. In the next step, apply any user preferences such as the price, stops, duration, etc. Revalidate seats and prices, make the payment, and deliver the book tickets back to the customer. Now, in this example, if any of the steps fail, we will not be able to achieve the end outcome, that is to book a flight ticket. Hence, if we were to understand why ticket booking via the agent is failing, we need to build something called as a transaction failure matrix. Now, this matrix helps you understand that among the chain of steps executed by the agent, between which from and to state did the agent fail. For example, in this case, we can clearly see that agent is failing between the steps where it has classified the user intent but is not able to call the flight booking API successfully. Another critical stage of failure is the payment stage. The metrics has helped you identify the hotspots in your problem, which if fixed can dramatically improvise the performance. For example, the fetch flight information could be failing because there are authentication failures, or rate limits are exceeding, or the agent is constructing wrong API queries. There could be some missing mandatory fields as well. While in the case of payment failures, some of the reasons could be timeouts, wrong data format, missing KYC fields, or even the airline API rejecting the booking request. Now, this brings us to the end of this module. In case you liked the video, please do share and subscribe. You can even check the description box of this video to find relevant sources which can sharpen your understanding about AI, product strategy, and you can also find other valuable product management resources.